Actually, I'll blame myself. I think I just came from up country, so I'm glad to be here, but my apologies. But talking about NCIC, reading that they're giving an excuse of funding to be the reason why they cannot be able to sanction anyone who is stoking ethnic tensions is really a lame excuse. So first of all, I want to say that the political class, slowly, we are losing it. I mean, both sides of the divide in terms of what we are saying in different forums. And some of our speeches have not been the greatest of what is expected of us. And but that's not to give an excuse to NCIC. Think about it. We watched on national television, the former DP came and said that, you know, that if the president is elected again, 2007 would look like a Christmas party. There was an attempted summon, but nothing more of it. This is a former deputy president, a slightly higher seat than maybe all of us here have ever held. When nothing happens at that particular level, you expect nothing to really happen at the lower level. The same way, also equally, the political class, sometimes we have almost reduced ourselves to balkanizing a whole community because of one single individual who is toxic or who you disagree with. And I think that is also a bit unfair to many other people. I speak of this because I have, from where I come from, we have been victims of such. There was a time, you know, that the whole community was vilified, still is, by a particular people, and maybe they were saying they would give an excuse that they have a problem with one particular individual who was Baba at that particular point. So I want to say that I want to urge my colleagues here that, you know, Kenyans look up to us. Kenyans look up to exactly every single thing we do and act, and that we need to watch what we actually speak, because we still have a country. Even for the various leadership positions that we are seeking for, I know my good friend is a senator here, my good friend here is a senator, I'm a member of parliament. Even if I were to run again, I must have a constituency to run, I must have a county to run again, I must have a country to run. So we might be able to differentiate. And as time goes by, the political divisions are going to be very clear. I mean, the divide, there are people going to be on the left, others are going to be on the right. But
will they be based on ideology, or will they be based on ethnicity, like what we're seeing right now?
Well, I think that we need to try as much as possible to take ourselves towards ideology. For example, the people who are criticizing the government need to get the exact facts. Whereas there are a few things that may not be working, but they should also acknowledge the ones that are working as we go into it. That is the only way we will take this, we'll be able to take this country to the next level. We must at all costs avoid the route of ethnic balkanization. So that, in fact, you know, in a good country, an ideal country, Daniel Manzo, if he's a good legislator, which I think he is, should be able to come and run in Migori.
Ideally.
Ideally. Should actually be able to come and run in Migori and convince the people of Migori that I'm going to represent you in the Senate. And they look at what is going to be able to deliver that particular point. I mean, I know we are far from that, but let us try as much as possible. Leaders who thump their chests, always saying that I have X number of millions of votes, I have X, my region is the one that did, it is a wrong one. I've even had, you know, a previous conversation here saying that, oh, you know, the president would have not been elected because of Gachagua, because of his community. That is wrong speech from us as leaders. That is wrong speech from us, because that is where it actually begins. Because when you associate a win with a particular community, that is why when governments are formed, certain communities get the feeling of entitlement to certain positions, that they get, that those people who they think did not vote or who did not vote for that particular matter don't have a right to even participate in leadership. And that's exactly what is happening. So someone keeps on saying, oh, you know, we are the ones who formed this government, but other people are coming to do it. Those other people are also taxpayers. It has to begin at that particular level. We must be able to adopt good practice whereby post-election, we get into government, a government is formed, and the face of Kenya is in that government. Regardless of whether you voted for it or not. That is an entitlement that gets into the head of leaders.
Yeah.
Funnily, it happens even at the constituencies sometimes. So that you find in Makueni maybe a certain wing that votes for Daniel Manzo.
Yeah.
As soon as he's there, they're the ones who want to receive the goodies. The others say, those ones don't vote for us. And if their numbers are very small, you'll find that they're pushed into a corner. And that is why some of us are extremely proud of the new commission, because it is being chaired by someone from a minority. People would never otherwise get, if you talk about numbers, would never get any space at the national level. Look at the vice chair. I was reading an article about her yesterday. She got appointed at 21. She's a 32-year-old young lady, but very well schooled, from Lamu, Bajuni. A small clan, otherwise that would have not gotten themselves to whatever. Yeah. That is the Kenya we want.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Manzo, you wanted to respond to Sigei, who was saying that the former deputy president, Rigathi Gachagua, is the one who is fueling ethnic tensions by the statements that they've made. But equally, we've also had the president talk about conversations around this never happened to any other person except myself. Many people read in between the lines and said that this is happening to me because of where I come from.
Well, I want to say that there's an ideal situation and there's a historical perspective and what Kenya has been. And I want to say that the Gen Zs, Kenyans have something to learn from the Gen Zs. They say they are tribalists, they are partyless, they are leaderless, and they stand for certain ideals which the country should live by. And if you are to go by the examples of the Gen Zs and the future of this nation, and that's why we want to encourage them and the younger generation to take up leadership positions in future and lead this country into a better country. I want to agree that whatever Honorable Gachagua says in the United States, you cannot arrest him from there. And again also, when you make a fair comment or a truthful comment, even if you are to be taken into any court or you are to be sued for defamation, it will still remain so. A fair comment and a truthful comment. One of the truths people may not want to hear now is that if it was not for Rigathi Gachagua, William Ruto would never become president of the Republic of Kenya.
What about the rest of the country that voted for him?
I'm just saying the effort he made, the personal effort. And some people fought him from beginning, from his own ethnic community. And that's why he still have issues with them. That's why Gachagua still have issues with Kimani Ichung'wah.
Let's qualify that.
Yes. When they were preparing, and the members of parliament associated to that team will sit down to help come up with a running mate of the president, that was a very big fight. That is now in the past. Things have happened. We need to move from here.
Wrong. I'm a member of the United Democratic Alliance.
Yeah, let him finish.
And I'm sure you are not there. You are not a member of parliament there.
Candidate already. By the time it got to a requirement to get a running mate, we were part and parcel of what was going on.
No.
The
and you rejected Gachagua.
There wasn't. You don't say. You've said that the members of parliament fought.
I'm saying then.
There was no fight. That is number one. Number two, as to whether or not other candidates were there is, of course, something expected. Our political space is available to everyone.
But I want to hear...
And I want to say those people who fought Gachagua from those days still fight him up to today. They also must give him his political space.
President William Ruto would not have won. What did you mean by that, sir?
I mean that Deputy President Gachagua made a certain effort and a serious effort to campaign for William Ruto, an effort which has not been appreciated. That effort must always be appreciated. So the haters of Rigathi Gachagua, the haters of Rigathi Gachagua should know that at least, are you telling me Ruto's administration has nothing to appreciate about Gachagua?
Let me say something.
But are you saying that all the win is associated directly to him?
It is. That is the truth. And that's what people associated with William Ruto do not want to hear.
So the 50...
And they must appreciate. In fact, he brought more than 50%.
You can't allow him.
More than 23.
That is the truth.
50 plus 1 vote.
No.
Why would you associate this with one person?
the 50 plus 1 is his personal effort and his efforts to form a political party. In fact, there was nobody who was as Kenyan as Gachagua then, because he said he belongs to UDA. He did not want to form his own party to go into a coalition with UDA.
Yeah.
And therefore, that gave William Ruto a very big support. It was in fairness, it was in good faith, and the man has been truthful. It's not that he's been mistreated. Yeah. By people who he helped form government. That's the truth.
On this,
yes, that's the truth. And you cannot run away from it.
I speak this, I'm not a member of UDA, but I respectfully disagree completely with my friend. One, who knew Gachagua before he was deputy president? No one. Gachagua is a one-term MP who just came the other day. Who knew him? If Gachagua was walking here on the streets, including in Murang'a, forget about Nyeri where he comes from, including in Murang'a, no one would have recognized Gachagua. The truth of the matter is that in the run-up to the last election, we've been here and we were with Manzo on one side. He knows that. That President Ruto was more popular in central Kenya than all those other members of parliament. Many of them actually even got to parliament, and we speak with them, they are our colleagues in parliament. Many of them actually got to where they are because of their association with President Ruto. You would see, let me give you an example, a very good member of parliament like Kanini Kega in the last parliament was a chair of budget during that time. What is it that led to his loss? Is because he was not on the Ruto side. It was not because he was not on Gachagua's side. That's, if anything, Gachagua was struggling to actually also get back his seat during that time. We were with Gachagua in the house. He was struggling. He used to come and consult, what is it that is happening? I think that no single Kenyan knew regarding Gachagua before the day the president appointed him as deputy president. That's when he began to get a bit of traction. Nevertheless, whether he participated, you know, the right to a vote, the right to a vote, and this is where we make a mistake, that if Makueni votes for a particular candidate, then my good friend Manzo will come and sit here and say, if it were not for me, you know, they would have not voted. Your vote is one. Yeah. Gachagua's vote was only one in the ones that were actually voted in.
That's why Ruto is going to be a one-term president.
But it's also, but then
it's because of advice like that. Ruto is going to be a one-term president.
Let me tell you, Ruto is going to serve the first one term, which was voted by the members of UDA. Then he's going to serve a second one term with this broad-based government. And, you know, the numbers will begin to whatever. And I think part of the discussion we're going to be having today, and it's not in too long, we're going to have by-elections.
Yeah, it's the next conversation we're having.
Yeah, we are going to have by-elections coming up pretty soon, Trevor. We are going to see whether in, for example, in Ugunja, whether the united opposition is going to win that seat. We are going to see in Western Kenya whether the united opposition, as they purport to claim, are going to claim that particular seat. We are going to see in Baringo.
Yeah.
So, you know, there is all talk. Yeah. There is all talk as we speak about it. And now let me tell you, there are certain truths. The truth that Gachagua has spoken about is that he is a tribalist. That is the truth. I agree with him. If that makes him a truthful man, I completely agree. Every other day, and Manzo, if we are to be fair, forget about our politics. The gentleman kept on advocating for his. He spoke about shares, including in Ukambani. And he told these guys in Ukambani, you guys don't have any shares in this government because you did not vote. And this, my good friend here is a seasoned legislator. You know, he's my senior actually. He's a seasoned legislator, knows very well that when someone comes to your region and tells you that you do not have shares and yet you're giving out taxes. I remember him being the first person who criticized Gachagua during that particular time. And he said, this is not right. What is it that has changed that now is... Are you trying to say when you went to your place and said that there were no shares, that the people of Ukambani do not have shares in government, that was truthful?
The truth of the matter is that the registration...
I just want
must respond to that. The truth of the matter...
Allow me to just prosecute this. You see, I am shocked that Manzo can afford to say the statements that he has said.
That's the truth.
Because it can never...
You have to live with the truth.
Truth of the matter is that which
the problem the current government supporters are living in a lie.
The popularity of President William Ruto in the run-up to the 2022 general election in Kenya, I wouldn't want even to go to central Kenya, in Kenya, was greater than anybody else's, including the Honorable Rigathi Gachagua. So it cannot be an argument that it is Gachagua that made Ruto the president. Of course, he claims that it's him. He was not popular. It's true. Who knew Gachagua? I got to know of Gachagua when the late...
Manzo was more popular than Gachagua.
And it is true. It's only that he cannot admit right now because he wants to argue along that line of now balkanizing even Kenyans. And you've been termed as Shemejis, or I think you are cousins. Actually, the statement came from your place that cousins.
Yeah.
Yes.
We are cousins and the rest of Kenyans are brothers and sisters.
No, that is now the tribal engagement.
That's the truth.
Yeah. So even when you look at right now, the member of parliament for Rigathi Gachagua, Eric, a young legislator, has been able to manage to have a conversation with the people of that constituency to an extent that if we continue this way, the person who will be seen as a typical tribalist is Gachagua. Okay. And we will not have a conversation about him later on. The rest of the Kenyans voted in this government, and the rest of Kenyans are appreciating the fact that though certain things are not happening, some of the promises made haven't been fulfilled, there are good effort that the government is putting to deliver to the people of Kenya. And when you listen to this opposition now led by Gachagua, for instance, every other time, because I'm trying to answer the question that you had asked about the way forward in terms of are we dealing with tribes going forward or will be dealing with issues. Remember, it has been asked without number that what are the alternative issues that the opposition, now claiming united, has as against the tribal conversations that they're having. And they have said, our agenda is one term. One term. The person who is saying one term is someone who even didn't serve half of the term he was supposed to serve in office. It would not have been, it's abnormal for a whole deputy president to be impeached by the entirety of parliament. Okay. That tells you the kind of a person Rigathi Gachagua was, a completely failed leader, tribal kingpin, who the truths that he had, all of a sudden, has completely turned out to be lies. It cannot help Manso to say that he is a truthful man now.
Let me just summarize this. Let me summarize it this way. First and foremost, every Kenyan is guilty of tribalism. That is true. And our strength is the diversity of our different communities and different nations. Kenyans? Yes, including yourself.
No.
There is no Kenyan community which is not guilty of tribalism. And therefore, yes, and therefore we are different communities, different tribes, but who come together, and our diversity is our strength. And therefore we are one nation. That's the first one. Secondly, you cannot gang people from holding opinions, to please certain political quotas. The truth of the matter is the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua was tribalized and also was motivated by bribery within, in parliament, and therefore it is not a true impeachment as such.
Let's make progress and move away from the personalities and ethnic conversations. Talk about something more substantive here, like the IEBC. And this is where I wanted to start off, Honorable Manzo. There are three main issues coming up. The by-elections, boundaries delimitation, and 2027 election. They have a 61.7 billion shilling budget which they tabled before Parliament. And they were supposed to get about 15 billion within this first year. They were only given 9. Is it fair to expect the IEBC to deliver a credible election at a time when there seems to be budgetary issues from the onset?
I believe IEBC will do a good job. Despite the many challenges it has and perceptions. First and foremost, for any election, whether this by-election or the national election, it begins with the registration as voters. And that's why we are encouraging as many young people as possible, first to register as Kenyans, and secondly, register as voters. Registration of voters should be continuous. And one of their tasks, which they should be approving as a matter of urgency, is the registration of voters, which should start now, should start today. And ordinarily, before a main drive, it runs at every headquarter of a constituency that any voter can go there and register as a voter. Because the moment you are disadvantaged as a community, which is what has been happening, or the moment the government does not register people evenly, and that's what happens generally to the eastern region or Ukambani region, that when it comes to the registration of Kenyans, there will be delays or IDs will be held till the election has passed, and then the IDs are released, and those Kenyans are denied an opportunity to register as voters. So first and foremost, we must have a voters registry which is cleaned up. We have over dead million voters, and in the past, in the rigging of elections, dead people were voted, and we have evidence of that effect. I am one of the active lawyers in election petitions, and that evidence comes quite often. So one of the biggest challenges of...
You have concrete evidence that these voters...
Yes. Came out, voted, and went back to their graves. That has happened in the past. So we want them to clean up that and to make sure that they are free and fair elections. They should not be biased in any way, and they should be given sufficient funds to be able to deliver credible elections. They must also monitor and make sure that the government does not use its undue influence and influence, elections in any manner. They must deliver and make sure that they are not held at ransom by the government at any particular time.
Nyamita, what should IEBC be prioritizing at this very moment, considering the three main tasks that they have ahead of them?
For me, I think the first thing, one is that I agree with my brother here. We must give the young people, the Gen Zs as we speak to them, an opportunity to say their voice. And actually I want to speak to the Gen Zs today, that your opportunity is coming in 2027. If you have issues with the leadership at different levels in the country, your opportunity is the election. And the first step is to ensure that there is registration. I agree with him that the registry needs to be cleaned, to remove dead voters. I am also of the belief that the current register of voters is not the accurate one. We have seen, for example, Trevor, particular regions, every other year, they keep on complaining that, their women are not giving birth. In fact, there have been attempts by leaders in certain regions to give incentives to women who are able to get more children because their population is declining. We have had even women protesting that men are not getting back at home. But when population census are done, the same regions still come up with the highest rate of birth. So there is actually a disconnect. And when we live around here, if my good friend from Makueni here were to tell me that there are 2 million voters in Makueni, I am not very familiar with the territory of Makueni, but at least I know Makueni. I've been there to a couple of places. You can tell by certain activities in a particular region. I will definitely tell him that there are no 2 million voters in Makueni. So the register must be cleaned to truly reflect the true numbers of voters in that particular area. But I actually think that the first and foremost thing that this IEBC needs to do is to build the confidence of the people, because in the run-up to them getting to the office, there have been issues, associations with particular people that they have worked and things like that. Though not making sense, the claims as well, and the courts spoke to those matters, they must be able to build the confidence of the people. Because if we go by the actions that they do, cleaning up the register, public outreach in terms of exactly the program, the technology that they're actually going to apply must be clear. We are living in an era whereby even the Gen Zs themselves can tell whether you are lying. Even young people, even my own children, can tell when you are lying to them behind technology. So the technology must be transparent and credible, that every other Kenyan, when they're going in there, even if I were to not be elected, I would say, okay, I'm not being elected just because my votes are not enough, but not because there is some gray areas. Because if they do not build the confidence of the people through the recruitment process, through the technology that is actually going to be applied, public outreach in terms of their program, in terms of explaining to the public the predictability of the processes that are going to happen between now and the next election, then we are going to get to a problem. And with the leaders speaking, from both sides of the mouth across the political divide, we're going to get ourselves into a problem. So I want to, and their first step is actually going to be this by-elections. In terms of funding that they asked for from Parliament, there's still normally a big argument about that Kenyans' elections is the most expensive when you look at it. I mean, 61 billion to carry out such elections. But I think Parliament should not. We would rather spend 100 billion, but be able to get an IEBC that is going to deliver our process. Because elections are very, very emotive. A very, very emotive issue. So even if they want 100 billion, I'm not saying they should, whatever, but even if they want 100 billion, in the context, in the grand scheme of things, 100 billion is a small amount compared to what we essentially want to achieve, because we want to have a country that will believe in the leadership that will actually come out of it. Okay. So we want them to these by-elections that are actually coming is going to be their first test to be able to. Finally, I think they need to refrain from leaning to either side of the political divide, be it the opposition or the government. They really need to live to their true mandate, which is independence. Okay. IEBC must be seen to be independent and be able to call out either side of the divide when they think they're going rogue.
Sigei, what should IEBC do now to restore the confidence of the people, now that we have a commission?
Thank you, Trevor. And first things first. It's true that in the run-up to the assumption of office by the commissioners, there are so many challenges, including their nomination, their approval, and ultimately, of course, the validation that the courts gave them last week, leading to their swearing in, and definitely they have assumed office. That in itself has been an exercise that somehow has given Kenyans a feeling of we have got a commission that is a representation of the people. And it's not supposed to be lost on us the fact that the chairman, the way Honorable Nyamita had earlier on said, is someone who most Kenyans indeed validated him merely because of the region or the community or the area he comes from, to the extent that people felt he's genuinely deserving of that position. Same case applies to the rest of the members. When you look at the list of the members of the commission, Erastus is a solid gentleman. He's a solid practitioner. He has been in various offices and he's qualified to be the chairperson. Ande Ritu, who's for the longest time been the registrar of political parties, Fahima, Mary Karen, and the rest of that team are persons of, in my view, standards that would warrant a comfort from among the members of the public. What they then have to do, now that they have already been given the right to assume office, and I believe even right now probably they are already up and running, they need to build that confidence in the mindset of Kenyans. The confidence in the context of trust deficit that we've had over time. Right now, Kenyans do not trust even their leaders, yet they put them in office. Not because of anything, but because of the challenges that Kenyans have had to go through, because of the demonstrations that have been experienced across. IEBC needs to build that confidence in Kenyans. They need to develop programs that will facilitate them to go out, to sensitize Kenyans, reach out to Kenyans, and let Kenyans know the role that they are supposed to do in a more involving and transparent way. That way, it will be a participatory exercise. Once they do that, and of course, I know it is something that is probably within their plan, they will be able to work along with the rest of the Kenyans. Their major assignment, as everyone else here has said, is to make sure that they conduct the upcoming by-elections in a more transparent and verifiable manner, which will now build up to the 2027 elections. We will not be able to have a fair election if the few mini polls will have challenges.
So the elections will be the litmus test?
It will be the litmus test for the IEBC. There are a few challenges that they have. Of course, the budget, you've mentioned that. They have asked for 61 billion. They've been given definitely less than that. But of course, because this financial year, the next financial year will be available, we hope that the IEBC will get funding that will be sufficient for them to run their obligations. We have had them appear before our jailer committee in the Senate. I and Senator Manzo sit in the committee, and when we last had a session with them, part of their biggest headache is, of course, the budget. The pending bill portfolio for IEBC is over 3 billion. I think it's 3.7 billion. Such that even for, the pending bills.
And the ranging technology that they're talking about.
The technology still, they'll need to upgrade it. And it's part of what now they have in their budget demand, included as the things that they need to upgrade. The technology to clear all the pending bills, of course, to hire and to clean the register, upgrade the register. Those are the major things that they'll need to do. And also a number of legislations, a number of laws will have to be amended to align with the changes in terms of pronouncements from the court, from the run-up to last year's election. A number of matters were litigated, courts pronounced themselves. There are few cases which must be amended, and this is where Parliament will come in. This is where, as Parliament, whether the National Assembly or the Senate, will come in to make sure that we align those court pronouncements with the Constitution and the law. And it is the role of this commission now to make sure that they push and fast track, which we have committed ourselves to support IEBC to make sure that we amend those laws so that as we prepare for election, we are in line with what the courts have pronounced.
Manzo, even as we speak about that expecting the IEBC to deliver a credible election, there are certain leaders who are already making some pronouncements that may create perception that IEBC is not truly independent. Let's listen to what the Wajir woman representative Fatuma Jeho had to say about the upcoming polls. Listen.
Sisi maneno yetu ni mafupi tu. Tunasema tu two term. Ama kuna maneno ingine? Two term. Sio? Si tunangojea tu debe iletwe hata kama hatutakuwa na votes tutamuibia. Hiyo si siri. Asanteni.
Your reaction to that statement?
I think that was very careless of this new politician, and she should know that our challenger in Wajir in the same position is a very tough lady, and that she's going to be faced off. This is irresponsible and recklessness. We are aware also there's a commissioner who was sneaked through, the back doors. That's only one commission, and I think the commissioner, 90% or so, is good. And is likely to deliver credible elections. We know the chairman is a very serious young man and has a very serious track record of perfection in his work. And I believe the chairman should steer away from politics, and the rest of commission steer away from such talk and make sure that no election is stolen. And I'm happy President Ruto has said, if I lose this election, I'll go home, farm, and support the rest of the country. So that the country succeeds. And I think also there's something the IEBC needs to take note of, and the young people of this country to take note of. When I was in university, I worked for the then IEBC those days as a, polling clerk. ECK. Yeah. A lot of university students will be hired as polling clerks. So beginning with this by-election, the IEBC, and that's why it should be funded properly. We should clear the debts it has so that they don't bog them down, the pending bills. The young people should know that there are a lot of opportunities during the election to work for IEBC as polling clerks, as people, there will be so many other jobs there. There will be voters, voter educators. There's a lot of work the agencies can do with the IEBC, and the IEBC should accommodate them so that they become part of it. And they also make sure the election is not stolen, because there will be constituting like 60–70% of the workforce of IEBC. And because they want a new Kenya, that's the best place to work now during the by-election and during the main election, and make sure even in Wajir a credible election is delivered. And this Wajir member of parliament is sent home by our competitor.
And Mark, are the politicians the greatest undoing for IEBC?
Well, what I have learned in my stint in politics is that when you see a politician speaking, sometimes you are not the audience. including Manzo today, could be speaking, but you are not his audience. So, what I want to say...
They call them, they're speaking to the gallery. Not the...
Yeah, so Manzo today, you know, you'll hear him in many other times. He has to sneak in one term. He has to sneak in a few things. You are clearly not...
Because it is one
you're clearly not his audience. Because... so whichever the audience my good friend Fatuma Jeho was trying to speak to, that is a reckless statement from a leader. Because we do not go, those are the small statements that will help fuel chaos in the country. Because if people begin, because people trust leadership. There are people in Migori who trust Manzo. When they see Manzo speak, there are people in Makueni who trust me.
Yes.
When they see me speak. When I say a few things, especially as reckless as that one, say that we will still. That one, those we really need to avoid. And I think those are the leaders that need to be called out. It's a bit reckless. But let me also say, you need to speak about IEBC. You know, I remember when Roslyn Akombe resigned, he had a few things that he had actually highlighted in part of having served as a commissioner. You know, there were institutional issues, there were electoral issues, you know, there were legal issues within the IEBC. For example, you know, Manzo, who is a beneficiary of the flawed system in IEBC because he represents a lot of cases. Now that we have time, and he sits in the National Assembly, you see, this is the irony. Now that we have time to put in proper, you know, these legal laws that avoid, that can help us reduce the number of disputes post-election, they will just cut around the corners. So we want the IEBC to list out the issues that require legal reforms, that requires us to change or create new laws to help them. Because when you hear that, you know, IEBC has debts of 23 billion, 90% of it is for lawyers. 90% of that money is actually for lawyers. In fact, Manzo, who is my good friend here, though he's paid in Parliament, never works for the whole 5 years. He only waits for election petitions, he makes his skill, and waits for the next election.
But you know, I represent Baba.
No, that's fine. I know you've represented many people, but this is the problem. So IEBC, and the good thing is that, you know, and I think that was the wisdom behind having the chair with someone with a rich legal background. We expect the new chairman, Mr. Erastus, to ensure that the legal loopholes that are actually there in the whole process that lead us to a lot of disputes post-elections or even in the run-up to are actually eliminated in the process. That is one of the things. Then it will be able to cut down costs. And that's actually where it has to begin. The other thing was this technology. Yeah. And, you know, when people say, oh, you know, this technology is obsolete, the average Kenyan cannot know which technology first is being used. When they say it is obsolete, what is obsolete about it? That's a clarity that Kenyans, because we cannot have every other election or every other agency created. Like now we have a new commission. That commission now says, oh, you know, we have to change the election technology. And you'll be told, you know, oh, we need about 10 billion to do that election technology or even more and things like that. So we need to know what is it that, what technology, because the technology for election should be really a very simple thing. It is basically identifying. It should be technology that should be able to identify the voter, enable them to vote, collate the data, and transmit it. It's a very simple technology that shouldn't be costing. So let them not hide, oh, this technology is obsolete. The next thing that you'll be told is the hardware. Well, the hardware I know maybe might be overtaken by events. But with the advancement in technology, it does not mean that the cost has to be extremely go high. Yeah. The other thing is public outreach. I tell you, I have participated now in 2 elections. And Manzo will agree with me. There are many people who participate in elections, right from MCA to the president level, who do not know what happens at each and every other step. Now, those are people who are participating in the election. So beyond presenting their papers and their qualification, they are just on autopilot. Now, if leaders are the ones who are failing, because IEBC also doesn't create time to take people through public outreach in terms of exactly this is what happens. Now you can imagine if people who participate in the election do not have so much information, what about the voters?
Yeah.
So public outreach must be extremely clear.
Okay.
Now, finally, I think on the issue of registration of votes, I think the president did a good thing in terms of trying to enable people who have been denied their right to vote across the country. We're not saying that the people who are registering IDs need to be reckless, but the opportunity to give. For example, I come from a border county in Migori. Many people in Migori have never been able to vote because of those border and the vetting process that has actually been happening there. So we need to still ensure that Kenyans actually vote in these elections.
Yeah.
They must be Kenyans across. I was in Lamu the other day. The Lamu guys are equally complaining that, they never get that opportunity. So we want them. We want the people who are going to process the IDs to be fair. The very speed that is going to be used in processing IDs in Migori should be the very speed for IDs in Makueni. Okay. So that the Makueni people do not cry after the election when the president is serving his second term and they start saying that, the IDs have come late. Okay. Yeah.
And Sige, we were talking about whether the politicians are the great for IEBC by their utterances. What Wajir woman representative said. And it's not just her, in all fairness. We've also had this even from leaders from the Rift, saying that Panga Panapale, this is not a statement that is just...
Yes, it is actually a very careless statement, I must say. And we need to call ourselves out as politicians, because such a statement will not go down very well, first of all, with the person who is your competitor, assuming that she's got a competitor in that particular position, or she will have, and two, to the rest of the Kenyans, who, by virtue of their entitlement to participate in an election, somebody else who is of some standard and status as a leader is saying, hata kama hatutakuwa nayo tutamwibia. It is a very, very reckless statement, and we definitely would want to dissociate ourselves with such statement and call out such leaders for making Kenyans to think that an election is just an event that someone can do karabati and win when they have not been voted for by Kenyans. We want to look forward to a situation where everyone takes responsibility for the statements they make. And so I call out my good friend also to withdraw and apologize for such statements. I believe that statement was made in just maybe, but it went out to the Kenyans. The rest of us, those who believe in a fairness and a proper competition, would want to see an IEBC that will be fair, transparent, and whoever the people of Kenya will decide to vote into office, from the lowest level, member of county assembly, all the way to the presidency, is the person of their choice. That was a reckless statement, and we want to call out not only her, the rest of the leaders and the rest of the political class who, when they are trying to speak to a certain audience, say statements like that, which is not going to be proper. Yeah. That is what I would say about that statement by the honorable member. Yeah. Secondly, there's something that I want to correct that Senator Manso said, that some of the commissioners were sneaked in the back door.
One was sneaked.
I want to correct that because we are speaking to Kenyans on national TV. This is a subject that was litigated in court. It was one of the issues that was dealt with by 3 judges, not one. Justice Aburili, Justice Chigiti, and Justice Mamuye pronounced themselves on that particular issue. So let's not speak popular statements to Kenyans saying one commissioner, Commissioner Nuru was vetted appropriately, the courts have pronounced themselves, and I've not had my good friend filing an appeal against the decision of the court. So it still stands that all the commissioners of IEBC were properly nominated. They have been sworn in compliance with Article 88 of the Constitution that requires of them to be taken through that process. Yeah. It only happens because we have a robust judiciary, and every Kenyan, including those who went to petition such nominations, and they have done their part. That is why we have progressed to the next level. Lastly, on this particular aspect, because it's important, Mheshimiwa Nyamita here have talked about the pending bills in IEBC and the need to align certain laws, which I had talked earlier on about. The only way we can make sure that Kenyans have faith in the processes that will be conducted by IEBC is to ensure that if there are certain laws that the courts did declare that they are unconstitutional, the period between now and 2027 is sufficient enough for IEBC to make sure that they fast-track the legislations to make sure that they align fully. Part of which is, for instance, the election offences, election financing. The Elections Act in itself has got certain provisions in it that the courts declared that they are unconstitutional, and regulations governing, for example, improvement of the technology, acquisition of new technology, which it can only happen if IEBC opens up, engages the people of Kenya in a manner that will not only be beneficial to the electorate, but also to the participants, so that we're able to speak to what Namita said. A good number of us do not know what happens in a polling station all the way to the declaration of a winner. And yet we are players in this particular field. So it will be an advantage for IEBC now that they have time enough to run a sensitization program for us to appreciate their role and to build back that trust, which we said has over time been lost by the people of Kenya.
All right. Manzo, let me bring in something here, a conversation that we were talking about earlier on, tribalism versus ideology and rhetoric versus substance. And we've all been accused of this. For example, there's a statement that goes on from the United Opposition that we can't run from. One term. In fact, that's what they keep saying.
It's constitutional.
It's one term.
Yes.
But the question is, what are the alternative ideologies that they're putting on the table? Let's just take one issue, for example. On health, for example. What is the opposition putting across? Are you saying you're going to repeal SHA, or what is it, rather than the rhetoric? Yeah,
I want to say that other than, you know, there are many things the United Opposition is dealing with. And the term, one term, is in the Constitution, and that's why we are elected for 5 years. And you cannot refuse, if Kenyans have voted you out, to stay in power against their wish, and at the same time you cannot use unfair means to be re-elected. Everything should be on the table. Secondly, when it comes to health, you know, the biggest problem with SHA is the procurement of this equipment, which was 104 billion, which all of us are still paying up to today, and that payment has not been processed appropriately, and there's not enough information on it. First of all, that particular procurement was not done openly. It was, you know, done without following the due process of law. And I have several examples in Makueni. Right now, I have one case in Kenyatta where the people had paid for SHA properly. They had a bill of 650,000. The SHA has only paid 100,000, and I'm struggling with the family to raise 550,000. That's what one. What I'm
trying to get at is the alternative.
So we are saying, first and foremost, the story of NHIF was not properly closed. And secondly, we must come up with a system which is workable for Kenyans, because the current one has issues, beginning with the procurement of this 104 billion. That's where the problem begins. We must sort it out. I'm sure that particular instrument doesn't cost that much. It must be much cheaper, and that's one of it. The second one is to reduce the cost of living. You can see what has happened with this fuel business. There is a lot of secret borrowing in this country. Wait, I'll give you, you'll have your time. There is a lot of, and you have seen the position Ndindi Nyoro has taken, and the position the minister has taken. So you cannot blame the world prices. You cannot blame the world prices, because the prices in our surrounding neighbors is much lower for fuel, and you cannot blame the war in Israel for high.
Get at here is what the conversation we had earlier on in the morning. We said that we need to now get into ideologies rather than rhetoric. Right?
I'm giving you the second one.
What I'm trying to say is
cost of living.
We are hoping that the opposition can say, on health, we will repeal SHA.
I've said.
We will put this one.
Yes.
On education, we will do this, scrap this,
help,
put this one. On employment, this is what we will do.
On housing, we will scrap this illegal levy, which the courts have found to be illegal. Yes, it is over taxation to the country. We will reveal SHA. All those things there are quite a number of things that will make sure there is fairness in the country.
Okay.
There's no fairness, and most importantly, the cost of living.
Okay.
You know, people should know, should ask themselves, why are people going to the streets to demonstrate? It never happened during the time of President Kibaki. It never happened during the time of President Uhuru in this magnitude. It is because something is very wrong. Okay. And instead of addressing what is wrong and dealing with it, you are busy using the gun to shoot people, issuing shoot to kill statements, saying shoot in the leg, and Kenyans have really been very happy with this. They have come up with so many things in social media, how they'll go vote while limping because one leg has been shot. So instead of dealing with
repeal most of the government.
We will repeal most of the government, and we'll make sure these Kenyans who have been killed and have been jailed inappropriately, detained, abducted, are compensated.
All right, compensation. Mark, this is what we were talking about earlier on, trying to see the alternative. As in, instead of just speaking, we say that this is the alternative to what is happening right now.
Trevor, you will agree with me that anyone who knows Manzo, who is an otherwise very eloquent member of parliament, is completely out of breath. He's completely out of breath. And this is exactly what is happening to the purported united opposition. Ask them about ideology. And you ask Manzo a very simple question. That there is SHA. What are you going to do about what are you going to do about SHA? He's talking about, oh, I have a bill.
A failure.
Now, you know, whatever. What are you going to do about affordable housing? Because removing the housing levy does not sort the shortage of housing. Because the reason why we are doing affordable housing is so that people who do not have decent housing can move into it. What is the alternative? Manzo is out of
Unfortunately,
when you ask him, today I can tell you, and this is a truth, even the church that was complaining about SHA every other day and saying, oh, you know, we are not being paid, today the payments are regular. In one of my churches, for example, in one of the SDA-led hospitals, I went there the other day and asked them, because previously they were in my office, asking me, Mheshimiwa, please help us push so that we get our payment. I went there the other day. The workers there were in arrears of up to 8 months not paid salaries because their money was stuck in NHIF. They told me, no, we are now up to date. When you ask our guys from the opposition, and Manzo is here, ask him, today he will agree with me. The number of harambes that we are going for on health matters
have increased.
Have gone down. That is the truth. They have completely gone down. Kenyans are actually paying for SHA. And there was even an issue when they said that now you have to pay for a whole year. And we are glad that they've introduced SHA Lipa Pole Pole. So you pay for first 4 months, then the balance you can actually take a loan, which is interest-free, and you continue to pay on an ongoing basis. I am telling you, the truth be said. And I'm saying, this is the reason. This country belongs to all of us, man. This country belongs to all. In fact, this gentleman comes from Makueni. Makueni, the hospital in Makueni, is actually one of the best county-led hospitals in the country. In fact, the medical tourism that they experience in Makueni from other counties is extremely high. The amount of money that Makueni now is receiving from SHA has gone higher. He's almost double. And I want to challenge him. He's coming from his county. That is the truth in Makueni. It wouldn't be if it is not that SHA is working. So SHA is working. So we are saying, if we want to build a country for all of us, my good senior man, whatever is working, we acknowledge and say, I was hoping to hear from Manzo saying that, oh, you know, we will improve SHA from where the president has taken it to now when you're sick, we can deliver for you drugs in the house. You know, that is something Kenyans can be able to. We will use technology now that, you know.
Don't want to lie.
That's what, you get what I'm talking about. Or something better, but SHA is working. If you think about this government, KQ, we have sat in parliament with this gentleman. KQ, every single financial year, we used to give KQ a bailout of about 5 billion, sometimes up to 8 billion. KQ made profit for the first time. Kenya Power, for the first time, during this time. No one wants to speak about it. If you ask these guys, what is it? Counties, and this is the protector of counties. He's a senator who sits in the, you defend counties.
Yes.
Counties, for the last 2 financial years, it is on record that this government has released funds to the counties before the end of the year, in total, including CDF. It was not. It was a struggle last time.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I have been in Parliament now for 8 years. CDF for the previous year, we would now be waiting to receive it in December. He was there himself. He was a member of Parliament. He will tell you. When you talk about even sports, think about it. I mean, let's be patriotic for once. We are now going to hold a continental championships here.
Yeah.
For the first time. We have our stadium's status completely improved. I saw the president there yesterday. I've seen the various leaders. Let us be patriotic, I mean, for crying out loud. Okay. And there are many other stadiums, including the one the president promised in Migori. Actually, they did a groundbreaking yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, when you ask, and in fact, Trevor, I like this debate. And that's why I'm not too worried. Because the moment we keep aside rhetoric and get back to the ground, there is no single constituency in this country that does not have a market that is actually under construction by the national government, including in Makweni. But when you ask these guys, oh, what is your alternative? Oh, you know. So we must move from rhetoric, and these are the people who are going to be called out with Gen Zs.
Okay. Sige, as you
I just want to regurgitate your statement. Whether the united opposition has got any alternative from what the government of William Ruto, broad-based government, has. And my friend, he struggled actually to go around and say they do not have an alternative other than what he termed as it's constitutionally provided one term. You didn't ask about it. You asked whether they have an alternative plan to support the people of Kenya, and you've had his answers. Part of what we have as our biggest problem with now the opposition is the idea of just opposing it for the sake of opposing it, and that has been apparent. When the other day the so-called self-imposed leader of this group was asked the question, he said, our plan is one term. Our plan is William Ruto. It can never be that your plan is to oust someone in office. Give issue-based challenges that the current government in place have failed and give us options available. He has not been able to give you any option which I can relate with as regards SHA. It cannot be that it's your option to repeal SHA. By the way, Honorable Manzo and myself voted for this law in Parliament.
I did not.
He did not.
I did not vote. I refused to vote for it.
But it was voted for by colleagues in Parliament, and it passed by a majority. This is not a law that was meant to be for a certain group that supported Kenya Kwanza. It is for all Kenyans. He's not given us that. So their story is just one term office, nothing else, no issues. The issues which we've talked about, my colleague here has enumerated a number of issues. For instance, in the housing, which unfortunately my friend is saying that they will also repeal the law on it. Remember, housing in itself, this affordable housing, Trevor, is a game changer. One, first of all, I am worried when someone, a leader, is against a very serious project that will dignify a life of someone. Pulling out our brothers and sisters who are living in slums to those decent housing units should be someone's, you should be proud to do it. And when you hear them, they want to have Kenyans who are living in slums continue living in slums because they've not given us an option. Affordable housing program had 3 limbs to it. Yeah. Dignify Kenyans so that they can have proper housing just like the rest of us. Have those Kenyans own a home, because that slum structure you are living in doesn't belong to you in any way. Yeah. You get an affordable housing, it belongs to you. So you will have been made to own a home as Kenyans. Yeah. And lastly, the number of jobs that have been created. And we have said this times without number, that affordable housing was not just a structure. It will give Kenyans employment. It has provided for Kenyans. Over 300,000 Kenyans have been working across the affordable housing programs across the country. Okay. This one, they do not want us to speak about because they are saying Gen Zs are looking for jobs. Yeah. They don't have jobs, yet they know if we support the affordable housing program, the ESP market program, among others, we'll be creating the jobs that Kenyans all want. They don't want to talk about the 76,000 teachers who've been employed by this government in a record 2 years. That has never happened before. But we should be, for once, patriotic.
Let's bring